Welcome back folks, this is Shane. In today's video we're checking out this reference monitor I've been using for the last 3 weeks. It's the Andy Cine A6 Pro. This is really cool and it's also affordable. Now, being that prices change over time, I'll leave links to where you can find this in the description below so you can see how much it is in your part of the world. Now, full disclosure, Andy Cine have sent this out for the review. I didn't buy it, they're not seeing this video ahead of release, nor are they paying me in addition to letting me hold on to this. So all the thoughts, the pros and cons will be my own. Now, each section will be timestamped in the description so you can skip ahead or back and forth if you so choose. All right, let's get into it. Let's start by covering what the Andy Cine A6 Pro can and cannot do. So while you may assume that this is a 4K monitor, it isn't. It's full HD coming in at 1920 by 1080 pixels, but it can handle both in and out of 4K signals. So if your camera is set to 4K, you'll still see it on screen, no problems at all. It just will do some downsampling to get the picture on screen. Currently, it's connected to my Panasonic G85, and that's a 1080p signal. But if I was to hook up a GH5, for example, and set the output to 4K, it will still work through this, no problems at all. Maybe the best thing about the Andy Cine A6 Pro is the fact it's full touch screen, and you have all the tools at your disposal that you'll need for any serious or semi-professional filmmaking, or even if you're a content creator. So for a guy like me, I always like to check my histograms. I always like to make sure nothing's overexposed except for that light on this other shot, which kind of adds a bit of mood. I like that, but anyway, not everyone will. So you get every tool at your disposal, as well as audio monitoring. Thanks to the 3.5mm output jack, you can listen with some headphones. One of the things I really love about this is not only is the touchscreen display great to use, but you have all the hardware keys. So if you're wearing gloves and they're not fitted with those little, pieces of rubber that will work on a touchscreen display, at least you'll be able to use the hardware keys. So they've thought about that, and it's really cool in that regards. Additionally, the Andy Cine A6 Pro can also power your camera thanks to the 8.4 volt DC output on the back. So if you've got a dummy battery for whatever camera you're using, you can power it, no problems at all. So let's talk a little bit about who this is for before we get into the nitty gritty of the specs. So I really feel like this is best for content creators, someone like myself who makes videos over a number of different channels, who wants to make sure everything is visible. This is also perfect for someone who might have an older Sony camera where they don't have a flippy screen, or even someone with a Panasonic S1 where that only flips up, or Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K or 6K where the screen doesn't move at all. Having something like this is invaluable, especially if you're the person in front of the camera. I can't shoot anymore without having reference screens. I've got 2 behind me right here. If I ever need a third, I've got this hooked up to a camera. It makes life a whole lot easier. One of the best ways I love to use the Andy Cine 4K Pro is with the ATEM Mini or Live Pro L1, which is a HDMI switching system. You can plug that output directly into this and then send that feed somewhere else if you need to, but it works just by plugging it straight in. You've got yourself a great reference monitor with all the tools you'll need at your disposal. Now, for those who also have a HDMI wireless kit like the Highland Mars 400, you can bolt it directly onto the back thanks to the tools that were included. So I can simply use this as a wireless HDMI reference screen and move it anywhere I like, given that it's battery powered. How cool is that? So if you use something like this, you can absolutely use it with the Andy Cine A6 Pro. Now, for those who are gimbal users, you can absolutely use it with a gimbal. I would suggest probably getting a side arm. I've seen some users do that, and it seems to make a whole lot more sense. I don't really need to use a reference monitor on my gimbal because the back arm never gets in the way of the flippy screen, but I know some brands out there like Zhiyun, for example, the back arm kind of covers the visibility on the screen. So if you've got a gimbal like that, get a sidearm, mount this, and you'll have an excellent monitor that you can put in any direction. We actually have full 360-degree rotation when I'm not using a massive NPF battery like this, but if I'm using the stock battery, I can actually flip this thing the whole way around, no problems at all. I'm just going to quickly cover what I think to be some of the more important specifications when it comes to the Andy Cine A6 Pro. We get a screen size of 5.5 inches and it's an IPS display. Maximum resolution on screen is 1920 by 1080 pixels. The brightness is rated at 500 CD. We get a contrast ratio of 1000:1 and a viewing angle of 80 degrees. When it comes to the inputs, we get 1 HDMI in and 1 5V USB-C type connector. In terms of the outputs, we get 1 HDMI output, 1 8.4 volt DC output, and we also get the 3.5mm headphone jack, which is the audio out. In terms of the supported video resolutions, it will handle everything from 480p all the way up to Cinema 4K at 24 Hz or 24 frames per second. Now, I'll leave some information either on screen or in the description if you want to see all of them, but basically anything you throw at this, it's not going to have any problems displaying that image. Another great thing about the AndyCine A6 Pro is most people have a few Sony NP-F style batteries, so if you've got those, you can power this no problems at all. It also came with a battery and a charger, which was something I wasn't expecting. So yeah, big thumbs up in that department. In terms of the operational temperature, you're pretty much good from -20 Celsius all the way up to 50 degrees Celsius is its desired range. So I'll leave the conversion to Fahrenheit on screen. So that's bloody cold to really, really hot. Let's talk about the functionality and all of the on-screen display options. Now, on my reference monitors behind the camera, I always have my histogram, I always have my focus peaking on to know that I'm in focus. I can see the blue lines on my eyes and the blue lines on my camera on my other monitor. So we can turn all of that kind of functionality on and off. But say, for example, you're listening with headphones as someone behind the camera and you need more volume, you can simply take your thumb or finger and swipe up and down to adjust the volume. So already this is extremely usable. You can also use the hardware keys to do this as well, but I just wanted to show you how easy it is. Additionally, if you want to change the brightness of the screen, it's nice and simple. Simply swipe up or down, depending on what you need. If you want more brightness, you can swipe up. If you want less, you can simply swipe down. The slower you go, the better it seems to respond. When it comes to the menu options, you've got two main menus. The first one, you can hit the menu button on top of the unit and it will pop up all of the options on the left. But we also have a quick swipe menu option, which you can change some of these presets as well. So right now we've got the custom center marker set to off. I always like having this on. It just makes framing your shot a whole lot easier. We also can turn on the 9 grid, which means if we want to shoot in the rule of thirds, we can do that as well. This will pop up like right there. So there you go. Now, it's not all about just framing, right? What about overexposing? So we can do that as well. We can turn that on. We can turn the overexposure option on, and we can also turn on the histogram. So we've got all the tools that we could need right now on screen. Now, if you're wondering how long it takes for the menu to go, what I've usually found is if you just touch the screen somewhere, bring up either the backlight or the volume, it disappears a lot quicker. But as you can see now, we can frame in the rule of thirds or dead center. We also have a histogram and we can see if we're overexposed or not. Now what I'm going to do is turn up the ISO on the camera and you'll see the overexposure become more obvious. Here we go. So all those zebras that you're seeing on screen are because it's letting me know that those areas of the frame are overexposed. So I really dig this. Being able to see that in a visual representation makes life a whole lot easier. I much prefer looking at this than the zebra patterns on the GH5 flippy screen, for example. It's just far easier to see. One of the great things about this unit is it has some focused assist tools. So one of the main things is right now I've currently got it set so whatever's in focus is highlighted green on screen. Now, interestingly enough, another cool way you can do this is by just pinching in and pinching out. So this is very reminiscent of zooming in on a photo on your phone, for example. To really nail focus, you can do it manually and use the tools that are on screen to see when it looks right. And then you can double check it by zooming in like this and then just double checking your focus at any point in time. So this gives you the ability to really nail the focus with minimal work. I think this is really great. So let's talk a little bit about the main menu over here as well. So if we hit that, we've got all these options over here. So I've shown you the histogram. The focus assist is what I've just turned on. We can change the peaking color from green. We can use these options up here, these buttons, to blue, to red. So we can change it to whatever we like. So depending on your needs or whatever you're used to, you can change the color of that. I think that's really great. We can turn the embedded audio on and off. We've already shown you the overexposure tools here, but I'll turn that back on so you can see what that looks like. Now we get exposure level IRE 80. That's the safe zone for most people's filmmaking. If you're going to be uploading to YouTube, you never want to really go over 99. So 80 is about the safe zone. I would just leave it at that, and that will allow it to show you exactly when the overexposure is taking place. Down the bottom of the menu, we have something called false colors, which is something I've never really used before. But if you're a professional filmmaker, maybe that will appeal to you. Let me know in the comments what it actually does. When it comes to the menu options, this thing is fully loaded. Each of these have their own options below them. So This is your focus. We got the 9 grid on or off, center mode on or off, ratio marker. We can turn that on as well. And this will allow us to choose whether we're shooting in 4:3, for example, 13:9, 14:9, 15, 16, 185/1, which is a cinema one, and so is this. So you get plenty of different options. Its stock is 16:9, which I'm sure most YouTube creators will be using, unless you go for that cinematic look. You can change it up if you so choose. For those of you who shoot in anamorphic widescreen, there's some user options available as well under this third menu here. So you can turn anamorphic on or off. We can also turn the zoom on or off, flip the image, as well as the on-screen display. So if you want to mirror image something, you can do that with this as well. One of the most important things that filmmakers will need is something that can preview any type of log footage. So if you shoot in Canon C-Log, Sony S-Log, Panasonic V-Log, or V-Log-L, you're gonna have the ability to turn on this LUT switch here and turn it on. So while it's clear that a lot of cameras will allow you to import a LUT, for example, like a GH5S, not all cameras have that ability, so to have this feature available is really cool for the right user. The last menu page screen will allow you to customize the unit in terms of language or usability. Let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons. So one of the things I really love about it is just how easy it is to use. Once you're familiar with how to get to the menu options, it's a piece of cake. I really love the fact that everything is on screen, and at the touch or a swipe, I can turn things on and off as simple as this. And it's just very, very usable. So if you're familiar with how phones work, being able to swipe and all that kind of stuff, you really love the functionality of this unit. Additionally, I love the fact that it came with everything I need to get it going, from this mount that it comes with, this little swivel mount. It also has a sun visor if you want to take this outside. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. It has the battery that it comes with, as well as the power supply and the HDMI cable to micro HDMI cable on the other side. So that's awesome. Most people will have the regular HDMI cables floating around if you need one, but the fact it came with a micro HDMI cable, it gets the big thumbs up. Those things are impossible to find, usually anyway, so I love that. Now, in terms of its visibility outside, I didn't really like using it outside at all. Even with this, which is the visor that it comes with, you can simply pop this over the front, and it's supposed to help you see the screen a lot better. Now, I did that terribly, but there we go. So even with this outdoors, I found it a little bit too hard to see the screen. Indoors, with studio lighting behind the camera, I can still see the screen fine. So it works great indoors. Just outdoors, even with it's not even facing direct sunlight, it's still really hard to see. Even with the brightness up to max, this touch screen is a high gloss finish, and all I was seeing was reflection. So I didn't find it any better than using the flippy screen outside. Now this will vary greatly depending on your shooting situation. When I tested this outside, it was a bright sunny day. It's probably the hardest test possible. There's only two nitpicky complaints when it comes to the Andy Cine A6 Pro. The first one is, if you're using this stock battery, or even one double the size of this from like a Sony MPF style battery, you're not gonna have any problems at all. When it comes to using these really huge ones like I've got on the back right now, I've got this mount tightened up as hard as it will go, and it still wants to tilt backwards this way. It's not going to fall or anything, but you get this slow tilt backwards. So just be aware of that if you're using these really huge batteries. Probably not the best option if you're going to be doing some run and gun work. But if you've got the monitor, say mounted separately, for example, then you won't have any issues with that at all. If I'm using it with my A10 Mini Pro and I just want to put it on the desk, I could use these batteries all day, which is fantastic. So there's a bit of a pro and a con there, but yeah, I can't tighten this up anymore. And with this battery, it just wants to tilt back like this. My only other small complaint about it, as I mentioned before, is using it outside. It's a little bit too hard to see. The high gloss screen, it helps, but it's not great, you know? So don't expect to buy this and take it outside, even with the visor, and go, wow, this looks amazing, because outside it really struggles. Indoors, under any lighting conditions, it's awesome. So I would have no hesitations recommending this for someone who's either a content creator sitting in front of the camera a lot of the time that want a portable monitor, someone using an A10 Mini Pro, for example, or just someone wanting a great screen that has all of the tools under the sun that their camera might not have. Links to this will be below. Thanks for watching. Catch you soon. See ya.